Here we go. Well, hello everybody and welcome to the RenoFam podcast. My name is Joey, and this podcast is designed to help equip parents to be the spiritual leaders of their home. This podcast does come with a disclaimer. I am not an expert, but I do want to get better. You're busy, I'm busy, we're all busy.
Yes, we are.
So we wanted to create something to help you as a parent. The RenoFam podcast is a ministry of Renovation Church in Hampstead, North Carolina, for all of those listening around the world.
A
Today,
global audience.
Global audience. I wonder how many people claim global audience. Probably a lot of them. I don't know if we can claim it yet.
We'll claim it.
We'll claim it. If you're global, let us know. if you're global, we need to know.
That's right.
Let us know. Today on the RenoFam podcast, we have Pastor Jon Cockrell, our founding and lead pastor at Renovation Church. Founding and lead. We're old enough now. I think both of those have to be displayed at this point. There's so much to you, Pastor Jon. There's so much. Yes. So I'm going to get to the fun stuff. He's all about adventure, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I am.
All about adventures, 80s rock, and your choice of workout and exercise? Basketball.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Basketball.
I'm always ready for a pickup game.
Pickup game.
Mm-hmm.
Always ready to play and
It
sustain an injury.
It doesn't matter what sport it is. I'm ready to play.
Ready to go.
Game on.
Ready to go.
Compete.
Well, John, thanks for jumping in with us.
Hey, it's great to be here, part of this extraordinary global
podcast. Global podcast. RenoFam Global Podcast.
Global citizens and Hampstead citizens.
I'm about to get another logo with the earth in the middle.
I do like that logo, the RenoFam podcast.
I like it too. I think we're going to make some merch, like some hats and sweatshirts with that logo on it.
You do that.
I think we will.
See where it goes.
Hey, if you want one of those, if you want some merch with that logo on it, put a comment on Spotify. You can't comment on Spotify.
No.
But you can send me a letter in the mail and say that's what I want. Maybe? No.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. We'll see what happens. All right. So, John, I usually call you Pastor Jon on stage always.
Well,
today,
yeah, I'm John.
I
Keep it
can't keep
simple.
up with that.
Jon.
I can't keep up with that on the podcast.
No, this John. I like the title, John.
So
I am your friend.
I am your friend. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. So let's just real quick. Let's catch up. You literally just got back from Las Vegas, celebrating 32 years with your amazing bride.
Yes.
Tita.
Yeah, you know that. Amazing.
Amazing,
All
incredible. Over. So, all right, tell me, how did it go? What kind of adventures did you get in?
Well,
how was it?
First of all, it was really cool. Not only was it our 32nd anniversary, it's the first time we've had a chance to go visit our beautiful daughter, Brooke, who had moved out there with her incredibly talented, handsome son-in-law, Maury Jenkins.
Yes.
And just wanted to throw that in there because he always gets dubbed talented, but he is, he's
so talented. He's as a drummer, to watch him, it makes me angry sometimes. He's so talented.
So to be out there to see where they're living, to see the city God has placed them in is really cool. And so it was 17 years ago that my wife went out there, and I surprised her on a 15th anniversary trip when I was 33 years old, let's say.
Okay.
So to reflect back on where we were 17 years ago, to be in the same spot, it was a little mind-blowing. And thinking, where did 17 years go? But what hadn't changed is our zeal and excitement for adventure. I mean, there was many things the same, yet there were many things that were different over the course of 17 years. But at the core of it, my wife and I are so in love and love sharing moments and memories together. So we obviously, if we're going to do anything, we're going to go 100% and have lots of fun doing it.
All right, so I saw a picture, and we haven't even talked about this, but I saw a picture of the dune buggies.
Yeah.
Tell me about, what was that like?
So that was a bucket list. I've been wanting to do dune buggies forever.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I was going to do. It really didn't matter how much it was going to cost or what it was going to take. And so we finally made it happen, and it lived up to expectations. Sometimes you're thinking, will it live up to expectations? Is it worth it was worth everything. Something that I got to enjoy with Brooke, my father-in-law, Tita's dad, Manny, and then Tita. We had so much fun. It was incredible. I'm ready to go back for a couple more hours. I want to buy my own dune buggy.
You're just driving wide open through the desert.
You
right?
Get you sign up for a 2 hour or 3 hour kind of adventure, and so they take you to this 3,000 acre ATV place, and you just go for it. There are vehicles flying everywhere, so you're one of hundreds of vehicles out there, so you got to watch out for all the other vehicles. Plus, the goal is to go as fast as you can without dying. So I thought, well, that's a win.
That was made for you.
Go. All right. Speed is your friend.
Speed is your friend. Go for it.
We went for it, and we had a lot of fun. And my wife had a blast, and Brooke had a blast, and Mandy did. So that's
awesome.
It was so much fun. Definitely put it on your bucket list. I'm ready to purchase a dune buggy.
We have a beach.
We should
Same
have
thing.
I can see dune buggies flying up and down Surf City. Add a whole nother element to
awesome.
To the tourism.
It's a wonderful idea. I do have my friend Manuel. He sent me, Manuel. He sent me a video a couple weeks ago. He has a buddy that camps from one town to the other in Arizona, and they rent those Polaris. It's like the dune buggy. It's the Polaris side by sides, and they drive for 3 days from one town to the other through the desert, and they camp along the way. Yeah. So you put all your gear in there, and then you just sleep under that canvas of stars. Because there's no light pollution, so you can see every star in the sky. And so he was sending me videos. I was like, we have to do this. This has to be done. So
it is adventure. It has my name all over it. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So for anybody else that's listening that doesn't know you or your family, walk everyone through your family, your kids, and where are they now?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we got married when we were 18 years old. We had our first daughter, Brittany, and so we just grew up as, here we are, young parents, kids with a child, and yet a beautiful part of our life and of our story. And so Brittany was. When she celebrates 32 years old, we're celebrating 32 years of marriage. So Brittany's our oldest. She got married to a fantastic young man, Justin Pate.
Yeah.
And they moved back to the Wilmington area, live in Hampstead, down the street from us a couple years ago. So it's been so much fun having them a part of our lives. And then our grandson, Easton, our first grandson. And Tina and I are so in love, enjoying every part of being grandparents. So it's a new chapter we're stepping into.
Yeah.
And then our son, Bradley. So he is our middle boy, and he lives in New York City. There, he graduated from NYU, has been living there. Can't believe it. He's 27 years old now.
27. Wow.
Just loving life and so gifted in so many areas. And so he's working there, has his own company. Love what God is doing through him, and just his creativity and all that brings into. So we always have amazing conversations around that.
Bradley sees everything at the next level.
He does.
That creativity, his eye for it is
creativity.
Things I would never even think about. It's like Bradley's like boom, and you're like, oh, okay, that.
So Bradley, and then our youngest is Brooke, and Brooke was very much a part of Renovation Church. So some of you guys know Brooke,
absolutely,
and she is 25 years old, and so it's quite remarkable. Of course, she's married to Maury Jenkins, and now is Brooke Jenkins, and so she's my little girl, daddy's girl, all the way through it. She's been a part of ministry, every aspect of it, and so this three incredibly talented, creative, hardworking, driven.
All your kids are so
they
driven.
All own their own businesses, entrepreneurs at heart. So it's fun to see them dream and just go for it, and we're going to cheer them on all the way.
See them as adults, all of those things along the way, and it's like. See that
having adult kids is fun, but you got to get there first.
You got to survive.
You got to survive.
You got to get there.
There are a lot of songs that we need to get us through, but you will make it. I tell parents, you will make it. You'll make it through this phase.
Yeah.
Whatever phase you're in, you will make it.
So let's talk a little bit about, you've got, 3 kids, vacations, family times. I mean, you guys had tons of them. I remember them because I would, get the stories back from many of them that you would take with. But do you have like a favorite memory or maybe like a dad fail or a parent, like something you had one thing in mind and maybe it didn't come across?
There are way too many stories. This podcast isn't long enough for all the dad fails. But here's the deal. I do know that I want to create memories and moments for my children to remember and reflect upon. So you have to be real intentional. It doesn't happen by accident.
Right. Sure.
Right. But I do remember this one moment where I decided to go out and purchase a headdress, a wig, right? And so on this wig, it was no joke. It was a nice investment for my future, and it was highlighted wig that I went out and purchased. And I showed up at home ready to show the new me. The new me. And I had this...
Just showed up randomly. No one knew it was coming.
I walked in, and I didn't expect the reaction from my children, especially Brooke. And Brooke broke down crying, terrified about this person that walked into her home. And she's like, I want my old dad back. And I'm like, accept me, accept your father. And this is a new me. She would not accept me. And that was hilarious. In my mind, funny. I'm thinking, I'm going to give him a brand new...
Fresh dad. That's right. Fresh dad's coming.
I mean, hair, highlights, representing, and well, that lasted about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. She was like, no.
But I did have fun because I wear that wig into stores and then back out and go back in and confuse people. And, I just,
I remember you had a whole drawer full of wigs.
I did. I had a whole drawer full of wigs.
They were nice wigs, man. They weren't like Amazon. They were
because we played. Back in student, we played a lot of characters, and it was great. And so you can get in a character. You had to put a wig on.
Had to put a wig on.
But Brooke did not. The reaction to that moment was hilarious. I did not expect for her to literally cry. She was terrified. She still has nightmares. I'm still paying for counseling over that moment. It's okay.
Oh my goodness, those are so fun. And for those listening, our relationship goes back to me being in high school and you being my youth pastor.
Yeah, that's right.
So we met when I was 15 to 16 years old, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I was in a place where I needed something new and something different and something fresh. And then God brought you to our church, and I was kind of like in and out and needed something different, honestly. And you were different. And I was like, this guy he's got something I want. And that was an excitement to do things differently, to draw students in no matter what it took, and to create incredible moments and environments. And we had a ton of fun together, and leading students. And I mean, our memories go back pretty far.
Yeah,
and
they do go back. Special memories, and the fact to be able to sit here with you is really special. But it does go back a long ways. And I, when it came to student ministry, I wanted teenagers to know that following Jesus would be the adventure of a lifetime, and I wanted them to see that. And so you have to lead by example, where serving Jesus is as good as it gets. And what does it look like for a teenager to discover Jesus and the thrill of it? It doesn't mean there isn't hardships and difficulties, and we won't make mistakes, but there is a sense of adventure in following Jesus when he says, follow me. And so, hey, I wanted to do that for students, to let them know that, hey, following Jesus is going to be the best thing you can do. And
that was, I think, what intrigued me, was because I had always seen church was for church people, right? And church was not a place typically that I could go to school and be like, you want to have the best night you've ever had.
That's right.
Like, come on.
Come to church, baby.
Something crazy may happen tonight, and it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And it was like those moments that you created that I'll never forget. I mean, there's two that come to mind. One was when you found the professional stunt driver from Fast and Furious.
Yeah, that's right.
That showed up, and we got a car from a car dealer in Wilmington, and he jumped in there. We won't mention, and he put on a show in the parking lot.
And a brand new Mustang GT.
Brand new. I mean, and just worked
brand new tires. Worked it out, but they knew that this was a professional driver getting ready to show off their car.
Literally the craziest ride I've ever been in my life.
That was a great moment.
I mean, he's power sliding this car. We had hundreds of teenagers around.
He did a 360 around me while I was holding his car. The
corner of the hood. Yeah,
I was holding it there. He did a 360.
Sammy Malouf.
That's right.
Sammy Malouf. That was him. Hundreds of teenagers, but
you remember that moment.
Sammy shared the gospel. We had kids that came to Christ that night. Yep. And then the second one was, we had just opened the building, brand new building, and we did mud off. We did mud offs.
Yeah.
So we dig a huge hole in the ground.
Right. Dig a hole in the ground and
fill it with
mud.
The blackest topsoil you've ever seen, and what
teenager's not going to show up to battle royale in the mud, right?
Yep.
Everyone's looking for a mud fight.
Fight in the mud.
That's it.
That was it. Yeah. Yeah.
And to clarify, it was guys against guys.
Yes, it was guys against guys. And
ladies against ladies.
And then the Topsail wrestling team actually shows up,
yeah.
singlets and all, and they're loving every minute of it.
Absolutely.
And still to this day, I was on the phone with one of the wrestlers that showed up at that event. He just had his first baby.
That's right. It's JT.
JT Johnson. He showed up there.
Yeah.
Later came to Christ. Oh, yeah. Life totally transformed. Mm-hmm. It was mud off night.
Mud off got him there.
And we had mud everywhere.
Listen, I just believe this, that God is gives us a gift of creativity. We want to use it for His glory and to reach people. And so every creative thought is like a gift. So I love the ability to think of ways in which I can reach teenagers. So at that time, I looked at the mission field is through the lens of teenagers. Teenagers was the greatest mission field. Let's reach them. What does it look like? What will it take to reach? You have to learn their language. You have to connect with them. And so you learn their culture and you bring Jesus in their culture and you see lives change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when we're looking at this, what's so intriguing to me is that we keep seeing adventure over and over again. I mean, it's just one of it's so right. The adventure that God has for you is bigger than anything you could ever imagine. And that's hard for people to grasp if the most boring day of the week is Sunday. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jesus was the biggest thing that ever happened. And and most of the time we go through our Sunday and it's fairly boring. And that's what I love about Renovation is it's not that. Yeah. When you're showing up on Sunday. It's an exciting place to be.
We had that conversation when we started, and that was a big one. What brings us together is ultimately to reach every man, woman, and child, but we're going to celebrate the life that God has given to us and celebrate every person we have a chance to encounter and to reach. And so it is a Sunday of celebration and anticipation of that. So it is a special moment as we gather together. So when I say every Sunday, this is my favorite day of the week because I get to see you, get to be with you because we're family. We share life together, and it is a celebrative moment.
Whenever you look back, because you had the student ministry days, but when you were first,
I'm still in student ministry, by the way.
Still in student. That's right.
100. I'm doing ministry for grown-up teenagers.
Grown-up. That is so true. And every grown-up out there goes, yeah, I'm a grown-up teenager.
That's right.
If you're listening to this right now, you're a grown-up teenager.
Admit it.
It's just a little different now. You're not eating as many Hot Pockets. You're still eating one every once in a while, but not as many. But you started, your first, go back to your first experience because, I love this story. You're 19 years old.
Yes.
And you have the opportunity to lead for the first time in ministry.
Right.
And so share a little bit about that experience and how that just shaped even what we're doing today.
Yeah, in that moment, Tina and I were newlyweds. We had a daughter, and my dad was a pastor. I had a full-time job at that time. My wife was going to nursing school. But we also knew how important it was to be a part of the local church. Mm-hmm. And I also loved, I was a teenager. I was still young, but I wanted to give back. And so my friend Paul Worth was a student pastor. And he says, John, I could use your help in student ministry. And I said, well, how can I help you? I said, I need someone who can teach the 6th grade boys. All right. I'm like, well, I've never taught before. I was thinking about I can do activities. I can lead games. But to teach, I never saw myself as a teacher, and to give me the responsibility of now leading, shepherding. I didn't use that terminology, but here I'm, being the small group leader to 6th grade boys. I'm like, well, if you need someone that bad, I'll do it. I don't have any experience, but I've been to church a lot.
So as a preacher's kid, I've been here a few times.
That's right. I've been here a few times. So I said yes. That was always something I've learned to say yes to the opportunities God's placed in front of me, and that yes was transformative because that required me to dive deeper into God's word, into studying, to preparing, and then also the interactive relationship with those students. And I didn't want to just be a teacher. I wanted to build a relationship with them because I learned early on that it's the relationship that serves as a leverage to teach God's word. So I wanted the relationship with them. And so that caused me early on as 19-year-old, what could I do creatively to build relationships with these 6th graders who probably are there because their parents drug them to church.
Yeah, right. You got to be here. So
you got to be here.
Enjoy it.
If not, right?
Yeah,
if not,
right.
You better. So that was a big part of it, was what I could do to be able to build a relationship. So that allowed me to think creatively, what can I do outside of the classroom? That teaching moment outside of the brick and the mortar.
Right.
And so, I started cooking breakfast and playing football and doing activities with them, the class began to grow exponentially. And so then I called up my best friend at that time, Travis Pless. Travis, I need your help, and you're going to have a blast. And so there we are, my high school best friend. We're now, 20 years old, and we're doing a small group together thinking, 2 years ago, we never saw ourselves doing this, but look what we're doing. And we just cultivated community and relationships, and we attempted to cook bread. We were clueless.
Because you took the kids off of the church site because your grandmother lived across the street?
She lived across the street.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time I attempted to cook breakfast, which is not a good start. I took them to I'm cooking breakfast for like 20 kids. I've never cooked breakfast in my life.
Right.
And I burnt the eggs. It smelled so bad. But we all forced ourselves to eat these nasty eggs. I couldn't eat eggs for years. But it was just a memory that was made in an attempt to just create community. We laughed. We had so much fun. And in those early days, it was just the creative process. What could I do to build relationships? The win in it is the relationship there. What I enjoyed and what I saw from those young men at that time was beyond just being a teacher. It was community. It was relationships. We were sharing life. It was fun. So our conversations went so much deeper, so much further, and friendships evolved from that process. So that was the beginning of ministry. And then from that, I did more events, went on mission trips. God used that to begin cultivating a call from what I was doing, because I worked at my father's bike shop. I loved it. I thought maybe for the rest of my life I'd be running the bike shop, and something I thoroughly enjoyed doing. The business side of it, loved it. But then God kind of just say, you won't be doing that for the rest of your life. He was calling me and confirming kind of going to ministry, which is what brought us to North Carolina. So student ministry was kind of the birthing of Renovation Church.
Right. Yeah.
I was 19 years old. So I'm speaking to all the 19-year-old students out there, or if you have, if you're a parent out there and your student's 16 or 17 years old, you never know what God might do in the next few years. And so just keep praying, keep believing. Keep swinging.
Don't stop believing, right? Don't stop believing. And that's what, and you can see, that thumbprint of how God has designed you to lead in ministry in Renovation Church today. It's like cooking breakfast for these guys, guys to, doing things like Dad Fest at Renovation Church. We're going to cook for every dad and their family every Father's Day and show up.
Memories and moments.
Creating memories and moments. The adventure of what it is to follow Jesus.
And they may not even see that. They might come for the allure of like, okay, I'll do church because they're doing something different. They're offering food, or they're doing this. But then they hear a message, and that we always say this, we believe this, that God is always at work, not at work in the hearts and lives of people. So there is a stirring that's taking place inside every person. And I'm just praying that I have an opportunity to tap into the stirring that God's doing. And we do look at moments, and you have to create the moments for that to happen there. So you just create moments, invite people to be a part of it, and just see what happens. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's go to, 6 years ago, you're starting Renovation Church, and we're having these conversations about what this church is going to be like. And
6 years ago, pretty much right now, we'd be in the throes of figuring this out.
Yep. like trying to literally operating everything out of your living room.
That's correct.
All of our kids ministry stuff is probably today 6 years ago being delivered to your house, and we're assembling it in your living room.
That's right.
All the play panels, everything. And you and I are having these conversations, and I remember you told me from the very beginning that this would be a church that was about reaching families. You're like, this is the target on the wall, the families. So why was this so important, and how has it shaped the way we do church every week?
Well, I believe a target's important, so you know what you're going after. And it's true for any business, for individuals. So you just identify who are we for, what are we going after? You narrow that down. And so I knew instinctively we wanted to be a part of the family. A lot of it goes back to student ministry, because in student ministry, what was happening is we were reaching students, but then I was reaching parents, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then we were having conversations. How do I parent beyond my capacity, and realizing I'm just a part of helping you reach and serve your students, I want to be an extra voice into your child's life. I'm going to reinforce what you're demonstrating and teaching at home. And so there was a partnership even as a student pastor. So I also understood as a church, we wanted to be for the family, that healthy families is what God desires. Healthy families create best environments, best places, best communities. So if I figure if we can create a church that was for the family, because ultimately, really, we are invited into a new family. Let's be for the family. You know, every person who gives their faith in Jesus Christ is a part of a new family. The adoption takes place. So we wanted to be, the correlation is, we wanted to be for the family. What would that look like to be for the family? Be for moms. We want moms to be the best moms they can be. We want dads to be the best dads they can be. We want marriages to be the best marriages they can be. So therefore, it's going to have a direct correlation to students and to those children and the joy of being able to do this together, and grandparents. So family is very broad. It is not just young families. It's a collective family unit. But grandparents are the greatest cheerleaders, right?
Absolutely.
They're the wisdom carriers. So we love grandparents. They're a part of the Renovation family. And yet we also recognize that we want birth, we want life, we want growth. So we are we're all for our families making babies, right?
That's right. It's like I tell people all the time, we're very close to a military base, and our amazing Marines, they do two things really well. They make war and make babies.
Yes,
they got big families rolling in, and yeah, I mean,
babies are a gift, and grandchildren. Even Scripture says they are, a gift, a crown, and so we look at the family unit as something we're for the family. So what can we do to help people feel that they are a part of a family? And here's the deal: family gets really messy. Family goes through challenges. Family has to deal with conflict resolution. But whenever I'm growing up in a family, we also get to create memories and moments together. We share life together. So how do we do that from a church? Well, it's not easy, but it's so much fun leading it from that perspective, from the family unit. Yeah,
and from the one of the first things that we did was party in the park.
Yeah,
and it was to reach.
That was it.
Families. Let's just we haven't even had church yet. Let's just get out there in the park. Invite everybody to a party so we can begin to meet families.
Build relationships.
And for years, we saw people. It wasn't like they came that next Sunday.
No, it takes
3 years later, they were like, I remember the party in the park we went to 3 years ago. And that was the first time I ever heard about Renovation Church, and now I'm here.
And you know that the story behind that, Joe, because we could have easily advertised Renovation Church, but it wasn't about Renovation Church. We just believed that we wanted to be for the community, build trust, build relationships, that it was beyond just you showing up on a Sunday. We wanted what was best for you, and we wanted to build a relationship. So what brings people together? Food, laughter, fun.
Yeah.
These creative elements that, like moms and dads, like that was a blast. What was this about? Oh, well, hey, by the way, Renovation Churches want you to know, hey, we love you. We appreciate you. We're glad you're in our community. Welcome.
Yeah.
And if you want to show up one day, we'll be ready for you.
We'll be ready. Yeah.
But we wanted the community to know that, man, we love them. We're for them because there's a God that loves them. There's a God that for them. And so we're just praying that in timing, God brings those people through our doors. But that was always a heartbeat of Party in the Park. It was for the family. And my goodness, we've reached probably more people through Party in the Park as a result of it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to have it last year, but I can't wait to throw that party again.
That's right. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. So, at Renovation, you mentioned this earlier, and I want to kind of pull this apart a little bit because we say that we're for the family, but one of the big ideas is we want to help parents parent beyond your capacity. And so it's the partnership between the church and the home. And what does this mean? Why is this important? And if you're a family, maybe somebody sent you this podcast and you're listening and you're not engaged in church. Like how can the church actually help you parent better, parent beyond your capacity?
Well, first, I can say this because I've been through every phase of parenting. Parenting is the most challenging, the most difficult, the most rewarding.
Yeah.
The most exhausting, everything you can imagine is what parenting requires other people besides mom and dad to speak into their child's life and to encourage mom and dad. So I know that in order for me to be the best parent that I believe I can be for my child, I have to surround myself with other people that have a care, concern, and compassion for my child, so they can help reinforce, to have conversations with them. Maybe my teenager's unwilling to have with me, or just won't listen because the wall's been put up. But there could be some breakthrough moments so that a Joey Todd or an Emily or a Brad and Tara could speak into the life of my children at a vulnerable moment. When I can't break through, someone else may be able to break through them. So that's kind of parenting beyond my capacity, because we all hit what I refer to as walls. And what I've recognized is all my kids went through different phases. So there were these really great, sweet phases, and all of a sudden we recognized, my wife and I would realize, oh, they're in this phase. So either we can get, I mean, this is in our 20s. I always say that's our clueless age, because between the age of 18 and 25, we had all three of our children.
Right. Yeah.
So we were young and clueless, and she's in nursing school and I'm in business school. So we literally are trying to just make it all happen through it. But then we recognize that, man, Brittany would go through a phase, and Bradley would go through a phase, and Brooke would go. They're all different because each child has a different personality. So that adds an extraordinary amount of difficulty to it.
Yeah, sure. Right. So, you can't copy and paste.
No, you can't copy. So Brittany's personality is much different than Bradley's, and how Bradley saw the world was much different. So that was so challenging. But what I did recognize is we had to come together as mom and dad, parents. We had to be on the same page. So they went through phases. We wanted to help our children navigate through phases, but then we also needed to surround ourselves with other people, especially when they come into teenage years.
Right.
My parenting style changes. Those teenage years is I got to be able to parent beyond my ability, because the fact is I've never been a parent of teenagers before, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's new to me. And if you're a parent of teenagers and you never had teenagers before, guess what? It's new to you.
Right. Yeah.
It's new to everyone.
Yeah.
So let's drop in some wisdom for those that are thinking, thinking with the end in mind, like we want to resource, help them. So that's the purpose of it, parenting beyond our capacity.
Yeah, and one of the ways we would see this in student ministry, we would hear this often, that a parent would come up and go, I've been telling my child this for years. And their small group leader says at one time, and they come home and go, Mom, my small group leader told me the smartest thing I've ever heard, and the parents just biting their lip because they're like, I've been telling you this for years.
It's so true.
But when the small group leader says it, or that other voice reinforces that, something amazing happens.
Absolutely. I mean, you heard it all the time.
All the time.
Parent, my son or daughter came home, John, you said this, and I've been trying to tell my son or daughter that for a long time. I'm like, that's what we're here for, right?
Right.
We're going to reinforce the things you're teaching at home. So then what we'd encourage parents is know that you're the greatest spiritual influence in your son or daughter's life. Be the best spiritual influence. We want to reinforce it. I shouldn't be the greatest spiritual influence as a pastor or as a student pastor. That's not my role, but my role is to be able to come along beside them, to give them God's word, to show them the adventure that awaits by following Jesus, but also to let them know that, man, they're under amazing parents that love them and care for them, want to provide for them. And there's a challenge. You're a student or you're a child of a parent that's trying to figure it out. So give a little grace, a little space to your mom and dad. Yeah. Because the workload's heavy. Life is hard. You have no idea what your parents are facing, and vice versa. Moms and dads, you have no idea what your child's facing. So we have to recognize that we're all in sometimes two different worlds, two different realities, and so therefore there is the reaction, the emotions that are attached to those. And I want to key in on something that you said, because it is so important. But the parent is the primary spiritual influence of a child. Like no one else is going to take that. No mistake
that
about
position.
It. Dad out there, you are, without a doubt, the greatest spiritual influence, for good or bad, in your son or daughter's life.
For good or bad. Right. So the depth that you have of these things, it doesn't matter. Your child is going to develop their spiritual worldview, the depth of it, based on your own. And mom as well. So they're both mom and dad. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's the single parents that go with it, and they're the real heroes out there. They're having to do it on their own, and it could be extraordinarily challenging. That's why we want to parent beyond our capacity and come along beside those parents that need help.
Yeah, and grandparents. We have grandparents that are bringing their kids to Renovation.
Grandparents loved us because they needed a break, and we gave them the break.
Gave them a break.
And I was like, hey, man, I don't blame you. We'll take care of them.
That's one of my favorite things at Renovation, is to see grandparents bringing their grandchildren to church. You know,
I met a couple this Sunday, Joey. They were there. They're attending. They said, we're starting to come to Renovation Church because our grandchildren are involved.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
that's
hello,
cool.
high five, grandparents. Yeah. They said, I want to see my grandchildren be a part of a church that's for teenagers. And one of their grandsons was running the camera for that Sunday. Man, he was smiling. Cool. He was so proud. I'm like, man, that's a proud pop right there.
Yeah.
And, of course, to be able to watch this generation lead our church today and be a part of it and be interact. It's so important for us as a church as well.
It's also so incredible to watch grandparents be excited about coming to church because their kids or their grandchildren are excited about it. I mean, most people wouldn't look at Renovation Church and be like, that's a place that most grandparents would love to come, right? But they get there and they love it because they're seeing life. They're seeing excitement. They're seeing the joy, that's being experienced there. And they'll tell you, I mean, we love this place.
Absolutely.
The music's loud. We love it.
Sometimes
we sit up front.
You really like it here? Really? I mean, I do. But I am. Yeah. It thrills me to see grandparents, our wisdom carriers, and they're like, we love Renovation Church. I'm like, awesome. Because it's outside of the box, right? It's at a high school gym.
Right.
The noise level may be a little higher than they're used to. It's a live band. And so it's not, the old terminology, tradition is contemporary. We don't use that terminology.
Right.
We're worshipers and we're getting after it.
We're having a party.
We're having a party.
What style worship
do you celebrate?
We have a party.
We have a party. I think Jesus is worthy of a party, right?
I think so. Yep. Every day Jesus is worthy of a party, So we've been talking about this idea of influence and spiritual leadership, and one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was when it comes to being a father. I mean, we talked about this over the years several times. Unpack what it means to be the spiritual leader of your home. Because I think in church and in our world that you hear that a lot. What does that mean? What does it mean for me as dad to be the spiritual leader of my home? And of course, the reason I'm asking you is you're a father, right? And if Tito was right here, I'd be like, okay, now what does it mean as a mother to be that? But for men out there that are listening, talk to them for a moment. What does that mean? Unpack what it means to be, and why is it important?
Well, there's a couple areas there. One, there's a biblical reference towards it in Ephesians 5, 21 to 33. Gives us a foundation of a marriage relationship, and it talks about the role of a husband and the role of the wife. And then in Ephesians 6:1, it brings in the role of children. So we see within just a few verses kind of the dynamics of the blueprints of a healthy family. So in that, we see it talks about the husband being the leader of the family. So from that, we just recognize biblically it's important that men, myself, step up and learn to be that leader that God's called us to be.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen by accident. I remember a moment when I became a father. I was 18 years old. Remember, I'm just coming out of high school. I've never paid a bill in my life.
Yeah.
Don't even know what that means. But now I found myself with a child, Brittany, to a Tita who I loved. And so it was at that moment saying, I want to be the leader for my wife and for my child. I didn't know what that meant, but I did have the foundation of, John, you're now the spiritual leader of your family that God has entrusted to you. And though I knew it, I still didn't know what it meant, but it was my responsibility to learn what it meant. So that was a life, still is today, a lifelong commitment to being the spiritual leader for my family. So I make the decisions for my family. It doesn't mean I disregard. I invite Tita. We have conversations together. But I think if there was one word or a phrase that would summarize it, we say it all the time: we lead by example.
Yeah.
So right. I want to be the example for my children when they see someone in love with Jesus. When they think of that, I want them to think of me.
Yeah.
Like my dad is in love with Jesus. My dad is willing to take risk for Jesus. My dad can identify my relationship with Jesus changes everything.
Yeah.
And then it's going to funnel through the way I treat my wife. Like your mom is number one in my life. Yeah. I love her. I care for her. God's called me to serve her, to be faithful to her. And so as a spiritual leader and influencer, I want to be able to do both those really well because I have children that are watching that. they're my greatest responsibility. They're my greatest, if I use a word like ministry, it's like my greatest call in my life is to love my family. And the best way I can love my family is to be that spiritual leader. Now, that breaks down to a lot of levels. We can spend probably many podcasts on what that looks like.
Right.
Biblical foundation, men are called to be the spiritual leaders of their family. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to be intentional. You have to be very selfless. Right? So Jesus was the greatest selfless leader. He was a servant leader. And because of Jesus' love for me and my love for Jesus, I want to demonstrate that for my family. So that's God's call on my life, and I got to learn how to do that, which is extraordinary.
Right.
Simple and yet difficult.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Because it goes everywhere in your life. One of them, I think, that it's for any guy out there listening right now. Okay, I hear you. I need to be the spiritual leader. It's like, where do I start? Where do I begin? What can I do this week to start being the spiritual leader of my family?
Right. So, and I've told this hundreds of times. The greatest way to begin it is your daily time with Jesus. I mean, it's as simple as that. And yet, once again, so many people fail to give Jesus any time. So if you don't give Jesus time, you can never be the spiritual leader God's called you. But you will see something really remarkable take place when you give Jesus time. All of a sudden, he begins to evokes some things within you that you don't have on your own. It's called the Holy Spirit.
Right,
and then you begin becoming the leader and identifying a different mindset, what it means to serve your wife, what it means to serve your family versus demanding, and so you learn patience when you don't have patience. All these things you begin to evolve. They only evolve when I'm spending time. So the simplest thing I could tell a father to do is your time with Jesus, your personal time with him, that devotion time, reading God's word, and there's apps for that. I mean, it's simpler today than ever. Yeah. All right, Bible app.
There it is.
I mean, they'll send you a verse a day, and I think it needs to go beyond that, but a verse a day is a beginning point. And then, so that's a beginning point. And then also just lead by getting your family involved in church.
Yeah.
It's the second one.
Yeah.
And stats show families that are involved with church and dads that lead their families to church have makes a dramatic difference in the future of their family, in the future and health of the life of those children there. So if dads were to say, man, this is non-negotiable, man, we're doing church, but I was doing church, we're going to be the church, be a part of it. Man, some amazing things happen in the life of that family, in the life of those children. And so those are two simple decisions any dad can make as they prioritize their time with Jesus. Hey, Jesus is the creator of the family. He's also the creator of the church. Both of them are seen as a family. And get your family to church and watch what God begins to do. Third, lead by example. Lead by example. Love by example. Be kind by example. Serve by example. When you do that, it's like I said, it's easy to say, though. It's really difficult to do that in the moment.
Right.
After a hard day's work, you're tired, exhausted. We have our rights and. But
this is my time.
My time.
Right.
The fact is, according to what we see in Scripture, we're called to be selfless and to serve our families, and God begins to do something really transformative.
Yeah. I think that the one word you use, you said prioritize.
Prioritize it. Yeah.
And that is, because when your child comes in and they see you reading your Bible or praying, they're gonna remember that. Or when your child grows up, oh yeah, Dad made sure that church was a priority for us.
Right.
Dad made it's shifting just start shifting a few priorities in your family.
It's small
start there.
Little details. It's just small little details. And sometimes just writing, I wrote little notes to my children all through the youngest years to the high school, even as adults. And I would write them a little note or scripture, words of encouragement, because as fathers, our words evoke good or bad.
Yeah.
Proverbs speaks about it. And so I just want to be able to be a person who evokes encouragement over discouragement. So my words matter. My kids want affirmation. They need affirmation. They're getting beat down by the world all day long. So if I'm not careful, I can be another party just beating them down, or I can be the one party that's encouraging them.
Right.
So, I mean, our kids hear so much negative. I want to be a person when there's, it doesn't mean, obviously we got to have discipline and we have hard conversations, but I want to be the greatest source of encouragement. I want them to dream big, and they're going to have a mom and dad that's going to encourage them to go for it.
Yeah, and I know there's probably people listening. You're like, okay, yeah, guys, sure, you're both pastors, right? but you don't have to be the next Billy Graham to do this. I mean, it starts. I mean, I remember, I remember Brooke.
Yeah,
when she was just a little thing, and we would be on a youth trip somewhere, and every night at 8:00, your phone was ringing.
Yeah, you knew it was coming,
and I knew exactly it was Brooke, and she was calling, that so that you would pray with her on the phone before she went to bed.
She would not go to bed until I prayed with her, no matter where I was.
Yep, absolutely.
And I would take that. Of course, it's so special. She's calling. I know at that moment what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And and then there at some point she aged out of it.
Right.
I'm still crying over it.
Brooke, call your dad for prayer tonight, okay?
But she would call, and I would pray over her.
Yeah.
And that would be, I'm tucking her in bed, and then she can go to bed. But that was so important to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, why did that become important to her? Because there was a moment that I created every single night, as I did for all my children, I would pray with them.
Yeah.
I prioritize a moment with them at the end of a hard day, a busy day. And I could have done a lot of things, but the most important thing I did that moment was I gave them some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simple.
And it wasn't a Latin prayer. It was a simple prayer with your child.
Unfortunately, that's the misconception about pastors in this. I wanted to create the most normal family dynamic. So when our children came home, we had normal conversations. Their friends loved to be around mom and dad, but they saw an environment that was loving, that was encouraging, that was fun. But we also, and we loved doing church together and life together, and we took that very seriously. But it was also a house, an environment that gave grace when mistakes was made, and I didn't always get it right. In fact, many times I did it wrong, and I would have to go to my children and say, Dad didn't handle that the right way. I apologize. Do you forgive me? This is how you make your wrongs right. And of course they forgave, and so that was just a natural part of it, so that there wasn't the tendency that Dad gets it perfect every time. Listen, we mess up. And God has a plan of reconciliation in the simplest ways. Dad was wrong. He lost my temper. I shouldn't have said that to your mom. Didn't handle that well. I should have treated your mom better in that situation. I mean, there were moments where those were real. Those were important, and yet those were some difficult moments that we've had. So yeah, when pastors are like anyone else,
right?
When it comes to life and issues and problems, we all have them. It's how we deal with them.
Yeah.
God's word goes to any person.
Yeah. And then in those moments, though, your kids are learning forgiveness because you're asking them for it. A lot of times we tell our kids, you got to go forgive, and it's like, but they've never seen us either ask somebody for forgiveness or manage a conflict we had with them in the right way where we had to come and ask for forgiveness either.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're asking them to exercise something. And if we don't show that as a parent, that it's important. It's just another kind of list type thing. Something I should do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It needs to be modeled.
You lead by example in this area. And my kids were great because we loved going out, and they would help me even say, well, Dad, you should have been nicer to that person, or you're right, because they're watching. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I should have been a little nicer. Should have handled that a little bit better.
Yeah.
Their accountability as well. And so you're like, yeah, you're right. I should have been kinder, and recognize that, man, they're seeing some things that how to interact with the world around us.
Yeah.
So those are special moments that as a father, having your daughter call you up and say, "Hey, I want you to pray with me," is special. And those are impactful. The hope and the prayer is that they get to do that now for their children.
But those were, that was a priority shift.
Yep.
That you were just intentional about.
Yeah, simple.
It was simple. It was something, and it changed the way that your daughter went through her evening.
Yep.
Every night. That was it.
That was the only way she was going to sleep. She needed Dad to pray with her.
Dad had to pray with her, which is just, and you look at something like that, and we know, when Brooke has a child of her own one day, what she's going to do. She's going to pray with that child.
Yep.
Before they go to bed.
Absolutely.
Because it's something that was, conditioned. It was something that you led by example in.
Those areas there. Yeah, and also just, in this, Joey, we all been through that now that as you're a parent, each of our children are different.
Absolutely.
Ephesians 6 talks about, father specifically, be considerate, be mindful how you treat your children, and don't parent out of frustration. Don't provoke them. Why? Because our words are so powerful that we have to recognize and understand that I got to pull the best out of them. So I don't suppress. I had to work so hard. Like parenting Brittany was so different than parenting Bradley. And there were some walls I had to figure out. How do I parent Bradley in a way, because he sees the world so differently. And there would be points of communication that I'm not breaking through with Bradley where I broke through with Brittany, kind of these breakthrough moments.
Right.
So, it requires prayer, patience, and the ability to, I need to have conversations maybe in a different way.
Right. Yeah.
With Bradley and also Brooke. Brooke, the way she saw the world was much different. And so, and their personalities are different. So as a father, if I take scripture seriously, I got to recognize how can I bring out the best, evoke the things that I believe that are within them, how to help them bring those personalities, those qualities out, because at the child, those qualities can be very frustrating.
Sure. Yeah.
Strong mind, strong will.
Oh my gosh.
Those are qualities that I have the privilege to pull out.
Yeah.
You've been there, right?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring that up. I remember specifically, we had Haley. Haley was 3 years old. And three was really hard, like really hard. And I remember,
you're done with parenting. You're tapped out.
I'm like, this is it. We're done. and it was this really, really strong will that Haley had. And I was always like, just like any beginning parent, you have all these assumptions, like my kid's not going to be the tantrum kid, or my kid's not going to be this and that. And I don't know what happened at 3, if the devil himself sent something to her. I don't know what it was, but it was like everything shifted in in parenting her. And I remember Tanya calls me. I think we were out that night, and I was like, I have to go home because Tanya's crying because Haley is just pitching this fit. And I get there, Tanya is on her knees in the hallway praying out loud, and I go in there, and and me and her are just back and forth, and I pull out every discipline trick my dad ever pulled on me. I mean, it was the painful ones, the close and holding one. I had done.
Went through your index.
Listen, I had gone through everything, and I came back to you. I'm like, John, like I've done it all, like all the things I know to do as a parent. And then you were like, no, you have to figure out how to parent Haley. Like you need to focus on how to parent her. Don't worry about how you were parented, how anybody else was. You have to figure out what is unique about her. And so, we put in the work, and it was like, there was some discipline that still carried over, but what I realized, and even as she's now 9 years old, but one of the things I remember we did was I had to put together this discipline reward system so that she could think through her actions from that perspective. And so one of the things we did is we talked about these tantrums and how we don't have tantrums. And when we do, there are immediate consequences.
Right.
But if we can control ourselves, then we get to enjoy time together. And so I went to the Dollar Tree and I bought these little $1 wooden boats, wooden toys that you put together. You glue them together and all that stuff, and we would paint them. And so if she did good for like 3 or 4 days in a row, we would sit down together and we got to build one, and then we put it in her room, right? And so if not, then the wooden toy was a spoon, and that was a little more painful. But there was this, but it started working. But I had to focus in. Okay, how does Haley see things? How is she thinking? She was thinking way differently than most 3-year-olds were thinking. At least that's what all my friends were telling me. They come over like, she's a little different. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Good thing or bad thing?
We're having my adult friends are having full conversations with my 3-year-old, and so, but we're even seeing, and now just watching how inquisitive she is, how aware of everything she is. She's always been that way, but I had to take that advice that you gave me. It's the best parent of me. No, you need to focus on how to parent Haley. And don't worry about everybody else. Don't worry about anybody. Like that was it, and keying in on that, and huge help.
Good, yeah. It's true. So she had an advanced processor.
Yeah, she did. She had an advanced processor.
But all of our children, they think differently. They have different personalities, and so we have to recognize these gifts.
Yes,
God has entrusted to us. They're not mine. They're His. and so I want to bring my very best to the table.
Yeah.
It's my responsibility in those areas. So as a parent, what often happens is, do we live in a home where our parents are in control, or do we live in a home where our kids are in control?
Right.
And those things can switch real quickly.
Yes.
But we want to be in a home where parents have order, right, control. So you create boundaries and you have disciplines. You're consistent every time, right?
Yes.
Consistency is everything to parenting. Inconsistencies confuse children.
Yes.
And the problem with the inconsistency is we're so tired sometimes. We're like, I'll do it next time. We'll talk about that later. The inconsistencies create the turmoil in parenting that's going to require you to dig deep. Don't be inconsistent. I know you're exhausted, but have the conversation. Keep the boundaries. It will pay off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you in parenting, like I said, it's exhausting.
And it was that was a solid year.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like she turned 4 and it was that week that it shifted for us. Like we weren't on it all the time. Yeah. But it was a solid year.
You'll pay you invest in it, that you'll see the change. But it takes time. Once again, you can't be inconsistent because it just confuses the child.
Right.
And if you confuse, you lose.
You confuse, you lose.
For Don Miller Story Brand Products.
There it is. There you go. There you go. Well, as we're getting close to an hour here.
Oh my.
Time's flying.
Yep.
We have an upcoming thing, or RenoFam workshop. We did one last year with our buddy Pete.
Yeah.
And
that was so much fun.
Creating a family mission, and that was really great. And we're getting ready to do our second one, and you and Tita are going to lead one on building a marriage on purpose.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about that. Give us a little sneak peek. I think it's maxed out. I think it's, I think it is. I don't think there's any spots left for it, but just talk a little bit about that, the excitement that you have, and really God's really placed on your and Tita's heart just to help parents and to help that relationship together as husband and wife.
Well, we see, first of all, the author of marriage is, God. He created the marriage, and so we just believe God has the very best in mind for the marriage. Tita and I, we've been 32 years into it. So if we're able to offer a word of encouragement, to give wisdom, to be a source of help to other parents that are going through it, we want to be able to do that. We love parenting. We love marriage. We believe that there's something special that God has ordained for the marriage. Unfortunately, there's an enemy so set against, the marriage, where it can be fulfilling, it can be rewarding. And so there's unfortunately a lot of negative connotation when it comes to marriages. In fact, so many people are choosing not to get married. So what I want to be able to do, and what Tina and I want to be able to do is just create an opportunity. Once again, it goes back to the relationship, to create an environment, to just have some continued conversations, to have a date night, to say, let's just talk about real life issues when it comes to communication. Like that's a big one.
Right.
That we had to figure out. We're still figuring it out, and how we communicate then looks a little different than now, but it's a lifelong commitment to just healthier, better communication, which is for a better marriage. Pete talked about that. Also, just dealing with, what it looks like to be on the same page when it comes to finances, and that's always a big hurdle for couples to get through. And so finances bring tension to a relationship, intimacy there. And, unfortunately, so many couples struggle in this area that God doesn't want them to struggle, and for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah.
And then also just to have a marriage that's fun. I love being married. I don't know if every couple can say that, but I believe God wants every couple to believe it's possible. Like my marriage is fun.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, great marriages don't happen by accident. Great marriages takes hard work.
Yeah.
Takes hard work, and so we want to help couples experience the best marriage that God has for them. So we're passionate about just pouring these next seasons, these next few decades into other couples. We're 32 years into it. We have so much more to learn. We're learning from others that are in front of us, but we can hopefully just download a bunch of helps. What not to do, right? There's a lot of those.
Sure.
I can give you. So that we're passionate about it. It's something Tita and I feel like in this next season of life, these next couple decades that we have, to be able to pour into as many marriages as we can. And so we're looking forward to doing this.
Yeah. I want to pull out one thing that you said, because I it just came to my memory. You talked about being fun, and we talked about at the beginning the adventure of it. I remember when we were doing student ministry, we did trips. We did a lot of trips. We did ski trips. We went down to camp and just all these kind of things. And I remember that you said, and this is something I've applied to both my marriage and my family, but you said, as a youth pastor, I spent a ton of time planning trips and putting all this work into these moments that we would have with teenagers. Why would I not do the same for my family and kids and my wife?
Right.
And that was huge.
That's a big one.
Because it's so easy to cruise control with your family, but yet put all the work into these other things.
Yeah, I remember of just in that moment, this realization that was my family getting the best of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So correlation for if you're not in ministry is work.
Sure.
Men out there, moms out there, you pour so much energy to help a company do what they want you to do. Mm-hmm. And what's the payoff, right?
Yeah.
It is a check, maybe. You know?
Yeah.
But then we're so depleted and we don't give the same time and attention to creating great moments and giving our very best to our own family. And so I just realized if I'm doing this for teenagers I love, why wouldn't I do this, or for children, that I care about? Why wouldn't I do this for my own children?
Sure.
And so then that was a shift even in my own life. Like, I want my kids to get the very best of me. I don't want them to go through adolescence thinking, man, Dad did this for everyone else, but what about me back home? Dad got all these accolades at work, but, I paid the price for the accolades. That's the transfer there.
Yeah.
So I want my children to get the very best of me. So therefore, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to take time, energy. Therefore, I'm waking up early in the morning because I don't have enough time in the day, but that extra hour allows me to have the extra capacity to dream and to think, or I'm staying up, whatever that looks like. I want to give them the time. So it's giving our children the very best, and creating these really special moments that don't happen by accident.
Yeah. So many. It's so easy to get caught up. My job, I've got this project I got to create. I have this Q1 goal. I have, and it's. And yet we don't put that kind of emphasis into our marriage. We don't put that kind of emphasis into our family. When at the end of the day, when we turn around, even 12 months from now, that quarterly goal you had doesn't mean anything.
So one of the best gifts I can give to our church is for our team, our staff, to have healthy marriages. So as we prioritize it, for the first 6 years until the pandemic, we had marriage retreats.
Yeah, our whole staff.
We do staff date nights. So what do? We prioritize it. I want to lead by example. I want our team, our staff, to experience great family nights, great marriages, so that's not easy. It's complicated. It gets messy, but we prioritize it. We do it over and over again so that as our children grow up, they're like, man, that was like where Mom and Dad worked was a blast because they created moments for us to take place there. We want that for our staff. We want that for our church. And so we have to demonstrate it and we have to practice it. And I want that for my own life. So the transfer is we lead by example. I want it for my life. I do it for my children. I'm going to do it for the people God's entrusted to me, so I do it for our staff. I also want to just create. I can't do it for our families. They have to make a decision, but I can create the moments and give them the invite and the opportunity to say, hey, come and be a part of this and see what happens.
That's awesome.
So date night with John and Tita, we're just going to, if you take away one nugget.
What's that nugget? Give me that nugget.
The point is, if you can take away one thing from a date night with John and Tita or from a parent resource, is all we're looking for as we're building wisdom is what is nuggets of God's truth.
Yeah.
And I build my house on wisdom and I fill my rooms with nuggets of truth. And so I'm like at John and Tita, you come in there, you're going to have fun. We're going to have some meals. We're going to laugh. But if you can walk away with one useful nugget of information, it's, and you said that yourself, that one piece of information I gave you in parenting really helped you out.
Sure. So, I didn't go to jail.
What we're not offering is a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
We'll say, hey, you might have one takeaway. It'll be worth your time if you had one takeaway.
And the application of it.
And the application of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we can hear that stuff all day. You gotta start applying.
Hey, what's the one takeaway that you can apply to your marriage and it'll be worth your time?
Yeah. Yeah. RenoFam workshop, a date night with John and Tita. It's gonna be a blast. We got a waiting list going, so you can jump on there and get on.
And I know the real reason why, because Tita's so much more enjoyable to listen to than me. Like, she has that, Latino flair, all the energy.
Oh yeah.
So, you're going to have a blast with Tita. John, I'll be the sidekick.
That's right. She's going to take over.
She'll take over.
What an incredible time. Thanks so much, John, for the mentor that you've been in my life, the opportunities and the joy it's been to serve alongside of you and our friendship and leading our church in such an incredible way. So,
Joe, man, it's the fact that we're here is so special. I can't wait to see what God's going to do in the years to come. So, man, my honor.
It's awesome. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us. John, thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
Hey, if you enjoyed this and found a nugget somewhere in it, just one nugget, send it to somebody. Share it, subscribe, click stars or buttons or whatever you're supposed to do.
One nugget's all you got.
One nugget's all you got. Share that nugget. Share the podcast. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.